They always say a mother's love is a protective shield, that it's a primal, unbreakable bond. That blood is thicker than water, thicker than lies, thicker than the bars of a jail cell. They tell you that the woman who gave you life would walk through fire for you. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? The kind of thing you see in heartwarming movies and read in greeting cards. But what happens when the fire is real? What happens when your mother is the one holding the match? And what happens when, instead of walking through the flames for you, she pushes you in just to save herself from getting burned? My name is Lena. I'm 17 years old, or at least I was when my life officially ended and this afterlife began. This isn't a story about a misunderstanding. It's not a cautionary tale about teenage rebellion. This is the story of how my mother, the most respected woman in our town, traded me for her freedom. This is how she let me take the fall for a crime she committed. This is a story I have to tell. And while I do, I'd be grateful if you subscribed and stayed with me until the end. It helps to know that someone's listening. Maybe you could even write in the comments, what's the biggest lie someone you trusted ever told you? It might help me feel a little less alone. Growing up in the house of Carolyn Peterson was like living in a museum exhibit titled The Perfect American Family. My mother was the curator, the primary exhibit, and the security guard, all rolled into one. Everything had its place. Every smile was cataloged. Every interaction was polished for public consumption. Our home in the idyllic suburb of Maple Creek wasn't just a house, it was a stage. The manicured lawn with its surgically precise flower beds was the opening act. The gleaming hardwood floors were the set. And we, my father and I, were the supporting cast in The Carolyn Show. Mom wasn't just a PTA mom. She was the president of the PTA. She didn't just donate to charity. She hosted the annual brunch for the Children's Hospital Foundation, an event affectionately known among the neighborhood cynics, i.e., me and my cousin Clara, as the annual festival of competitive compassion. Their mothers in tasteful linen outfits would outbid each other on silent auction items, their checkbooks wielded like weapons in a silent, smiling war of social standing. Mom always won to the outside world. She was a pillar of the community. Mrs. Peterson, who always remembered your kids' names. Carolyn, with the perfect blowout and the warm, reassuring smile that could calm a screaming toddler or charm a skeptical town councilman. People didn't just like her. They admired her. They wanted to be her. Your mother is a saint, Mrs. Gable from next door would tell me, clutching a casserole dish Mom had given her. You are so lucky to have her. I would nod and produce my own well-rehearsed, camera-ready smile. I know, she's the best. Behind closed doors, the museum was a much colder place. The smiles were the first thing to be put away, carefully stored until the next public viewing. The warmth in my mother's voice would drop 10 degrees the moment the front door clicked shut. Life wasn't about happiness. It was about performance. And my performance was rarely up to her standards. I remember one report card in freshman year. I brought home 5 A's and 1 B+. A solid B+ in advanced algebra, a subject that felt like deciphering alien hieroglyphics to me. I was proud. I'd worked my tail off for that B. I handed her the report card, expecting, if not a congratulations, then at least a neutral. Good work. She scanned it, her perfectly shaped eyebrows knitting together. Her finger tapped on the B+. Not a hard, angry tap. A soft, disappointed tap, which was infinitely worse. A B+, Lena? She said, her voice quiet. Yeah. I almost failed the midterm, so a B+, she repeated, as if the concept was too grotesque to comprehend. She didn't look at me. She just stared at the offending letter on the page. You know what a B+ says? It says, I'm average. It says, I don't try quite hard enough. Is that the message you want to send to colleges? That you're adequate? She didn't yell. Yelling was messy, unrefined. Instead, she deployed her signature weapon, the silence. For the next 3 days, she spoke to me only when absolutely necessary in clipped monosyllabic sentences. She'd look past me, through me, as if I were a ghost who was tracking dirt on her pristine floors. The entire house would fill with the weight of her disappointment. My father, a man whose spine seemed to have been surgically removed and replaced, with a feather pillow, would just pat my shoulder awkwardly and whisper, "Just try harder next time, sweetie. You know your mother." Oh, I knew my mother. I knew that my role was to be a reflection of her perfection. My grades, my clothes, my friends, even the way I smiled in public photos, it was all an extension of her brand. If I slouched, I was disrespecting the family. If I wore a band t-shirt she deemed too loud, I was inviting the wrong kind of attention. If I didn't immediately bubble with enthusiasm at one of her social functions, I was embarrassing her in front of everyone. It was exhausting. My only real escape was with my cousin Clara. She was 3 years older, already in college, and possessed a bullshit detector that was second to none. Aunt Carol is winding up for her big annual performance. She texts me before the charity brunch. "Remember to stretch your smiling muscles. Don't want to pull a cheek." "Just got the B+ as the mark of a slacker speech." I text back. "Ah, classic. Did you get the silence or the 'I'm not mad, I'm just profoundly disappointed in your life choices' monologue?" Clara saw the real Carol Ann. She saw the iron fist inside the velvet glove. But even Clara, in her infinite cynicism, wouldn't have believed what my mother was truly capable of. I didn't either. I thought her obsession with appearances was just a deep-seated insecurity, a desperate need for external validation. A personality flaw, sure. A source of constant low-grade misery for me, absolutely. But I never, not for a single second, thought it was a sign of something criminal. I thought her weapons were passive aggression and weaponized disappointment. I never imagined she would one day use a can of gasoline and a book of matches, and that she would find a way to put my fingerprints all over them. It started as most small-town dramas do on the internet, specifically on the Maple Creek Community Forum on Facebook, a digital town square where the most pressing issues of the day were debated with the fury of 1,000 suns. I was scrolling through it on a Tuesday night, procrastinating on a history paper, when the first post appeared. It was from Brenda, a woman who owned a local knitting shop and served as the town's unofficial herald of chaos. Brenda's knit and natter. "Does anyone smell smoke near downtown? Seeing emergency lights by the district office building. Hope everyone is okay." Immediately, the comments flooded in. Speculation ran wild. A gas leak? A faulty wire? An overambitious microwave burrito in the municipal break room? My cousin Clara, who was home for the weekend from college, texted me a screenshot. "Clara, place your bets. My money is on old Mr. Abernathy falling asleep with his cigar again. Me. Nah, it's the district office. I bet the sheer boredom inside finally achieved critical mass and spontaneously combusted." We joked, because that's what you do. In Maple Creek, nothing really bad ever happened, but then the local news website updated its homepage. The headline was stark: "Arson investigation underway at school board member's office." The victim wasn't the building itself, but a specific target within it: the satellite office of one Mr. Gerald Henderson. Henderson was a relatively new member of the school board, a slick real estate developer with a smile full of teeth and a reputation for aggressively pushing new zoning laws. The fire, according to the article, had been small and contained. No one was hurt, but it was deliberate. Someone had broken a window, tossed in an accelerant, and lit a match. It was the graffiti that elevated it from simple vandalism to something more personal. Spray painted and angry. Dripping black letters across the smoke-stained walls were 2 words: corrupt and exposed. Whoa. I texted Clara. "Okay, that's spicier than I expected." "Clara, Henderson?" Someone finally got tired of his sleazy land deals. Good for them. "The quality of our local crime is improving." I snorted. It was just town gossip, a momentary blip in our perfectly curated reality. It had nothing to do with me. Asterisk, the fire was the only topic of conversation at school. Everyone had a theory. It was a rival developer. It was an angry parent whose kid didn't get a zoning variance for their ridiculously oversized TREEHOUSE dot. Then came the update. The one that made the tiny hairs on my arms stand up. The police had received an anonymous tip. A woman walking her dog late that night had seen someone running from the alley behind the district office. Just minutes before the first smell of smoke, the description was frustratingly, terrifyingly vague. A teenage girl wearing a dark hoodie and a backpack with brown hair. I read the words on my phone screen and a cold little knot formed in my stomach. I looked up from my phone and caught my reflection in the darkened screen. Brown hair currently pulled back in a messy ponytail. My standard uniform for the past 5 years had been a rotation of 3 dark-colored hoodies. I never left the house without my backpack, a beat-up gray canvas thing that contained the entire, chaotic contents of my life. I fit the description dot, so did half the girls at my school. So did half the girls in the entire state of Connecticut. It was a meaningless generic profile. Still, the knot in my stomach tightened. That evening, the topic finally breached the pristine walls of our home. My mother was at the kitchen island, meticulously chopping vegetables for a salad. Her movements were precise, economical, like a surgeon at an operating table. "Did you hear about the fire at Mr. Henderson's office?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "A terrible, senseless act of vandalism," she said, not looking up. "This town is getting so unpredictable." "They have a description of the suspect," I said, my voice a little too high. "The police! They're looking for a teenage girl." I paused, then added, "with brown hair and a hoodie." The chopping stopped. My mother placed the knife down, perfectly parallel to the edge of the cutting board. She turned to me, and for the first time, her face wasn't a mask of maternal concern or community leader disapproval. It was blank, eerily, unnervingly blank. Then she laughed. It wasn't her warm, public-facing laugh. It was a short, sharp, airy sound. A dismissal. "Oh, Lena, don't be absurd," she said, her smile finally appearing, but it didn't reach her eyes. "A teenage girl with brown hair and a hoodie? Darling, that describes approximately 70% of your graduating class. The police are fools. They're looking for a delinquent, a troublemaker." Her eyes flicked over me from my messy hair to my faded jeans. The unspoken message was clear. Not someone like you, not my daughter. "I know, it's just weird," I mumbled, feeling stupid. Of course, she was right. It was a ridiculous thought. I was a straight student, B pluses notwithstanding, a member of the debate team. A quiet girl who spent her Friday nights reading, not committing felonies. It's not weird, it's, tragedy. She corrected me gently, turning back to her salad. Poor Gerald, as if he doesn't have enough on his plate. I watched her perfectly calm demeanor, her steady hands, her complete and total lack of alarm. Any other mother might have shown a flicker of worry, a moment of, "Oh, that's a little too close to home." But not my mother. She was a fortress. Of tranquility? She was right, of course. It was a ridiculous connection to make. The police weren't going to come knocking on the door of the PTA president's perfect home. But as I sat there, watching her calmly finish her work, a tiny, cold thought wormed its way into my brain. For the first time in my life, her perfectly. Calm voice didn't calm me at all, Dot. It terrified me, Dot. It took them 3 days. 3 days for the vague, generic description of a brown-haired girl in a hoodie to travel through the town's nervous system and land. With pinpoint accuracy on our doorstep, Dot. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was in my room, headphones on, trying to drown out the world with a blast of angsty indie rock while I finished a chemistry lab report. I was so engrossed in my own small, academic misery that I didn't hear the doorbell. What I did hear was my mother's voice, sharp and laced with a theatrical tremor of distress. It was her, I'm a concerned but cooperative citizen voice. It cut through my music like a siren. I pulled off my headphones. The house was too quiet, and then I heard the low murmur of unfamiliar male voices downstairs. My stomach did a slow, cold flip. I crept to the top of the stairs, peering down. I saw them first. 2 police officers in full uniform standing in our immaculate foyer. They looked enormous and out of place, like 2 bears had wandered into a dollhouse. My father was there too, wringing his hands, his face pale and slack, and my mother, she stood between them, a portrait of bewildered grace. Her hand was pressed to her chest as if to calm a fluttering heart. Double quotes, ... of course, officers, she was saying. We want to help in any way we can. We have nothing to hide. But I can assure you there must be some mistake. My Lena... One of the officers, a grim-faced man with a thick mustache, looked up and saw me. His eyes narrowed. Is that her? He asked, his voice a low rumble that echoed up the staircase. My mother turned, her eyes finding mine. For a split second, I saw something in them, not fear, not surprise. It was something cold and calculating, a flash of resolution. Then it was gone, replaced by a mask of pained worry. Lena, darling, she called up to me, her voice trembling slightly. These officers need to ask you a few questions. Come down, please. My legs felt like they were filled with wet cement. I descended the stairs one by one, each step a lifetime. The officer's eyes followed me, clinical and unblinking. Lena Peterson? The mustached officer asked. He didn't wait for an answer. We have a warrant to search the premises in connection with the arson at the district office building. He held out a folded piece of paper. The words swam before my eyes. Warrant, search, arson, Peterson residence. It felt like a prank, a very, very bad dream. What? I whispered, looking at my mother. Mom, what is this? It's a misunderstanding, honey, she said, but she didn't step toward me. She stayed rooted to her spot near the officers. Just cooperate. We'll get this all sorted out. Asterisk, they were surprisingly efficient. 2 more plainclothes. Detectives had entered the house, fanning out with a quiet, practiced professionalism. My father just stood in a corner of the living room, looking like he might faint. I was instructed to sit on the couch and not move. They started with my room. I listened, numb, to the sounds of them opening my closet, my drawers rustling through. The carefully curated chaos of my teenage life. It felt like a profound violation. One of the detectives came down the stairs holding a black zip-up hoodie. My favorite one, the one I wore everywhere. He held it in a clear plastic bag. Find something? The mustached officer asked. Black hoodie, size medium. Found in the suspect's closet, the detective reported, his voice flat and official. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's my hoodie, I said, my voice barely a squeak. I wear it all the time, so what? No one answered me. The next discovery came from the garage. Another detective returned, this time holding a spray paint can. Black. Also in an evidence bag, 1 can of Krylon, semi-gloss black. Found in the bottom of a trash receptacle in the garage, he announced. We don't own spray paint. I blurted out, standing up. I've never seen that before in my life. Sit down, miss, the officer commanded. My eyes darted to my mother. She was watching the whole scene with wide, tearful eyes. She looked horrified. She looked devastated. She looked like the perfect mother whose perfect daughter had just inexplicably betrayed her. Carol Ann? My father stammered, finally finding his voice. This is insane. There's no way. Let them do their job, Richard. My mother sighed, her voice a steel whip wrapped in velvet. The truth will come out. The final piece of their evidence came from a project I'd done 2 months earlier for my civics class. We had to research a local government official. I'd chosen Mr. Henderson because his name was in the news a lot. The detective brought down a printed photo of Henderson's face, the kind you get from a quick Google image search. It was tacked to a corkboard in my room along with concert tickets and pictures of my friends. Now it looked like a target profile, the case they were. Building was circumstantial, flimsy. A hoodie, a can of paint, a photo, it was a joke. It had to be Dot, and then came the betrayal. The real one. The one that shattered my world into a million pieces. Dot, my mother, took a deep, shaky breath. "Officers," she said, her voice cracking with manufactured reluctance. There's something else. I didn't want to believe it. I was hoping I was wrong." She walked over to the small desk by the front door where we kept keys and mail. She opened a drawer and pulled out a small silver USB stick. "My USB stick. The one I used for school." She held it out to the lead detective. Her hand was trembling. "It was a masterful performance. I found this in her backpack last night," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "I was looking for a permission slip and it fell out. I looked at what was on it. I had to be sure." The detective took the USB stick. My mind raced. What was on it? School essays? My history paper? Photos from Clara's last visit? I would soon find out. But in that moment, all I knew was the cold, creeping dread that was wrapping itself around my throat. My mother looked at me. Her eyes were full of tears, but behind them, I saw it again. That cold, hard, calculating glint. It was a look of grim triumph. She had just handed them the nail for my coffin. And she had done it with the heartbreaking sorrow of a mother who had no other choice. "Mom?" I said, the word catching in my throat. "What did you do?" She didn't answer. She just let a single, perfect tear roll down her cheek. A tear that sealed my fate. The ride to the juvenile holding center was a silent, surreal blur. I sat in the back of the police car, the world sliding by outside the reinforced. Window distorted and unreal. Maple Creek, my perfect, pristine town, looked like a movie set I was being forcibly removed from. They didn't call it jail. They used softer words. Holding center, juvenile facility. But the reality was the same. It was a place of steel doors that slammed shut with a deafening finality, and a color palette consisting entirely of beige, gray, and institutional sadness. They put me in a small, windowless room with a metal table and 3 chairs. An interrogation room. I'd seen them a million times on TV, but the reality was so much more mundane and suffocating. After what felt like an eternity, the 2 detectives came in. The mustached one, whose name I learned was Detective Miller, and a younger, sharper looking detective named Reyes. Miller threw a thin file on the table. "All right, Lena," Miller started, leaning back in his chair with a sigh, as if I was the last, most annoying part of his day. "Let's cut the crap. We know you did it. Just tell us why, and maybe we can make this easier on you." "I didn't do anything," I said, my voice shaking. "I told you I've never even seen that can of spray paint." Detective Reyes leaned forward, attempting a sympathetic look that felt completely rehearsed. "Listen, Lena, we're not trying to ruin your life. We get it. You're a kid, you were angry. Henderson's a controversial guy. Maybe you felt he was corrupt. Maybe you wanted to send a message. We just need to hear it from you." They laid out their evidence, like a set of tarot cards predicting my doom. The hoodie, the paint can, the photo of Henderson from my school project, which they now called a person of interest board. It was a civics project. I insisted, my voice getting louder. "My teacher has the whole report. I got an A on it." Miller scoffed. "Convenient." Then Reyes slid the silver USB stick across the table. It stopped right in front of. But this, Lena," he said softly. "This is what ties it all together." He opened a laptop and plugged it in. He turned the screen so I could see. My blood ran cold. It wasn't my schoolwork. It was a collection of files, all meticulously organized. There was a folder titled Research, which contained screenshots of news articles about Gerald Henderson, his business dealings, and the zoning controversy. There was another folder titled Images, filled with nighttime photos of the district office building taken from the alley. And then there was the folder titled Manifesto. Inside were a half-dozen Word documents. There were drafts of anonymous blog posts, written in a style that was a grotesque parody of an angry, self-important teenager. They were filled with rants about corporate greed, political corruption, and the fall of Maple Creek. I stared at the screen, my mouth hanging open. It was a perfectly crafted narrative of a radicalized teen activist. It was a complete and utter fabrication. "This isn't mine," I whispered, horrified. "I have never, ever seen any of this before. Someone put this on my USB drive. My mother, she—" Miller let out a short, harsh laugh. "Your mother? Your mother found it and turned it in, looking like her heart was breaking. She's the one trying to protect you. And you're trying to blame her? Kid, we hear a lot of stories in here. That one's a new low." I was trapped. Every denial sounded like a lie. Every protest sounded like a desperate attempt to shift blame. My own mother had given them the script, and they were all reading from it. The interrogation went on for hours. The same questions, the same denials, the same looks of weary disbelief from the detectives. They led me to a small room, my cell. A thin mattress on a concrete slab, a toilet, a sink. When the heavy door shut behind me, the silence that followed was a physical blow. I spent the next 24 hours in that box, begging every guard who passed to let me call my mom. "Please? I just need to talk to her," I'd say. "She can clear this all up. It's a mistake." They'd look at me with pity or annoyance and keep walking. My mother never came. My father never came. Their silence was their answer. On the second day, someone finally came. But it wasn't her God, it was a lawyer. A man in a slightly too shiny suit named Mr. Davies. He looked less like a crusader for justice and more like a man who calculated his billable hours in his sleep. "Lena," he said, sitting down across from me in that same interrogation room, "I've been retained by your parents. Your mother is very distraught." A tiny, stupid flicker of hope ignited in my chest. "Is she here? Can I see her?" "That's not advisable right now," he said smoothly, opening his briefcase. "We need to focus on your legal strategy." He reviewed the file, his expression neutral. "The evidence is substantial. The DEA is prepared to charge you with arson, breaking and entering, and making criminal threats." My hope died, turning to ash in my mouth. But I didn't do it. He gave me a patient, patronizing smile. "Lena, what you did or didn't do is not the primary issue right now. The issue is the evidence, and the evidence tells a very compelling story. A jury will believe it." He folded his hands on the table. "However, because of your age, your clean record, and your emotional state, the DA is willing to offer a plea agreement." "A plea?" "You plead guilty to a lesser charge. Vandalism, perhaps. You state that it was a mistake, a cry for help, a rebellious phase that went too far. You'll get juvenile probation, mandatory counseling, and community service. In a few years, your record is sealed. It all goes away." It's a very generous offer. I stared at him, the full weight of the conspiracy crashing down on me. This was her plan. Not just to frame me, but to control the narrative of my fall. I wasn't supposed to be a criminal. I was supposed to be a troubled dash, but dash, good dash, kid dash, come dash, a dash, good dash, family. Who made a mistake? It was a more palatable story. It kept the family's reputation bruised, but not shattered. "Your mother is very concerned about your future," Mr. Davies added, as if that would seal the deal. That's when the shock finally burned away, leaving something hard and cold in its place. Anger. Pure, undiluted rage. My mother was concerned about her future. I thought my mother was concerned about the PTA brunch. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it felt like a cannon blast in the silent room. Mr. Davies blinked. No, I'm not pleading guilty to something I didn't do." I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. "I want a trial. I want everyone to hear the truth." For the first time, the lawyer's slick composure cracked. He looked at me as if I'd just announced my intention to sprout wings and fly out of the building. He saw a complication, an uncooperative piece in a carefully arranged puzzle. I didn't care. My mother had pushed me into the fire. She'd left me to burn. Now she wanted me to apologize for the smoke, not a chance in hell. They could lock me in a concrete box, but they couldn't make me sign my name to her lie. For 2 more days, I existed in the gray vacuum of the holding center. My life became a rotation of 3 activities: refusing to speak to Mr. Davies, the liar my mother had hired to bury me, staring at the ceiling, trying to pinpoint the exact moment my mother decided I was disposable, and pushing food around a plastic tray, my appetite completely gone. On the 3rd day, during the designated visitor time that had so far been a cruel joke, a guard stopped at my door. "Peterson, you have a visitor." I didn't even lift my head. "If it's my lawyer, tell him I'm developing a sudden and severe case of laryngitis." "It's not your lawyer," the guard said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Says she's your cousin." My head snapped up so fast my neck cracked. "Clara." I was escorted back to the same small, sad room, my heart pounding a rhythm of hope and fear. When the door opened, she was sitting there, looking profoundly out of place. While everything in the facility was beige and defeated, Clara was a splash of defiant color in her faded band t-shirt and ripped jeans. She had a look on her face that was a potent cocktail of fury and concern. "Wow," she said, her eyes scanning the room as I sat down. "The decor is even bleaker than I imagined. Early 21st century correctional chic, very oppressive." A choked, hysterical laugh escaped my lips. It was the first time I had made a sound resembling happiness in days. "Clara, how did you even get in here?" "I'm over 18, technically an adult. I called that slick weasel of a lawyer your mom hired, told him if he didn't put me on the visitor list, my next call would be to the local news to talk about the concerned family that won't even visit their troubled daughter. He caved pretty fast." She leaned forward, her sarcastic armor falling away to reveal the raw worry underneath. "Lena, are you okay? What the hell is happening?" The floodgates opened. I told her everything. The raid, the hoodie, the paint can, the photo. I told her about the USB stick, the fake manifesto, the pictures I'd never seen. I told her about Mom's perfect, tearful performance. And I told her about the lawyer's advice. Plead guilty, be a good little scapegoat, and make it all go away quietly. Clara listened, her expression hardening with every word. "She's not answering my calls. Dad isn't either. They left me here." "Of course they did," Clara said, her voice laced with venom. "A public trial is messy. It's not on brand for the Carolyn show. A quiet plea deal is much more tasteful." She shook her head, running a hand through her hair. I knew she was a world-class narcissist, but this is a whole new level of evil. She was quiet for a moment, her eyes distant, as if she were scrolling through a mental archive. "Lena," she said slowly, her gaze sharpening, "did you know Aunt Carol and this Henderson guy were practically at war?" I blinked. "What?" "No, she just said it was a tragedy, and he had enough on his plate." "That's because she's a liar, Clara?" Shot back. "She's been trying to launch a new business for the past year. An upscale interior design and lifestyle consultancy firm. She calls it Maple Creek Curated Living, or some other pretentious crap. I vaguely remember Mom talking about a new project, but she'd been secretive about it. She wanted to lease a prime storefront downtown for her showroom." Clara continued, the pieces beginning to click into place for her. "But the zoning board had to approve it for commercial use. Guess who the deciding vote on the zoning board was?" "Henderson." I breathed. Bingo. And he was blocking her. Apparently, he had his own plans for that block. He saw her as a competitor for the town's disposable income. Clara leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "But it was more than that. I was at your house a couple of months ago to pick up a book. I'd let you. Aunt Carol was in her office on the phone. She didn't know I was there. She was talking to him or about him. She was ... furious. Carolyn furious, which is just talking very fast in a low, murderous tone." Clara's eyes widened as another memory surfaced. She said he was threatening her. He'd found out she was using her PTA contacts to privately badmouth his new housing development to potential buyers. He called it a dirty, unethical conflict of interest and threatened to go public, to expose her as a hypocrite who preaches community while sabotaging it for personal gain. He was going to ruin her. My blood went ice cold. Reputation was everything to my mother. The threat of public humiliation would be, to her, a fate worse than death. She had a motive. A powerful one. "Clara," I said, my mind racing back to the evidence. "The police. They found the spray paint can in the garage trash." Clara's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. The garage." I came by one night, maybe a week before the fire, to ask Dad for help with a flat tire. The garage door was open. Your mom was in there, standing over a workbench. It smelled weird, like chemicals. Paint thinner or something. There was a canvas drop cloth on the floor. She saw me and practically jumped out of her skin. She got all flustered, said she was just fixing up some old patio furniture. She rushed me out of there so fast. It was weird, but I didn't think anything of it. We stared at each other, the horrifying picture suddenly snapping into focus with crystal clarity. "She did it," I whispered, the words tasting like poison. "She set the fire herself. It was small. Contained ... just a message, a warning to Henderson. And when the police got a tip about a teenage girl," Clara finished, her voice grim, "she saw an opportunity. A perfect escape route. The pieces fell into place with a sickening finality. The motive: Henderson was going to destroy her reputation, and her business dot the means. The paint and accelerant she prepared in the garage under the guise of a project. Opportunity: an anonymous, vague tip that happened to fit my description. The scapegoat: her own daughter. A 17-year-old girl would get a slap on the wrist. But a respected mother and community figure, the PTA president, committing premeditated arson, that was a career-ending, life-shattering scandal. The USB drive was her masterpiece. "She's going to let me take the fall for this," I said, the full, crushing weight of it settling on me. "The lawyer, the plea deal, she wants me to confess to her crime. The love I'd always had for my mother, a love that had been strained and tested but always present, finally curdled and died in that gray, sterile room." Clara reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Her grip was firm, grounding. "No," she said, her eyes blazing with a protective fire I hadn't seen from anyone else. "She is not. She's not just a narcissist anymore, Lena. She's a monster. And we are going to expose her." I looked at my cousin, my only ally in a world that had turned against me. For the first time, I wasn't just a victim. I wasn't just a scapegoat. I was a witness, and the truth was my only weapon. My refusal to take the plea deal sent a ripple of chaos through my mother's carefully laid plans. Mr. Davies, my lawyer, argued with me, cajoled me, and practically begged me to reconsider. "Lena, you are making a catastrophic mistake," he'd insisted. "Going to trial is a gamble. A jury will see a troubled girl lashing out and a heartbroken mother. The narrative is not in your favor." "The truth is in my favor," I'd shout back. "The truth," he'd said with a sigh, "is whatever a jury decides it is." He wasn't wrong, but I didn't care. Juvenile court isn't like what you see in movies. The courtroom was small, the wood paneling dark, and the air thick with the ghosts of 1,000 other family tragedies. I sat at the defendant's table, wearing the nicest, most conservative outfit Clara could find for me, a plain blue dress. That made me look younger and more innocent than I felt, and then I saw her. My mother entered the courtroom, followed by my father. She was the picture of maternal sorrow. She wore a simple gray suit. Her hair was pulled back in a tasteful, understated bun, and her face was pale, etched with lines of worry. She looked like a woman enduring an unspeakable hardship with quiet dignity. It was, I had to admit, another masterful performance. The trial was a blur of legal jargon and crushing testimonies. The prosecution laid out its case with brutal efficiency. They presented the hoodie, the paint can, the photo of Henderson. They paraded the anonymous tipster, a nervous woman who confirmed she saw a young person. Probably a girl running from the scene. The centerpiece of their case was, of course, the USB drive. Detective Miller took the stand and described its contents with grim authority. The manifesto, the research, the incriminating photos. When my lawyer, Mr. Davies, who was now forced to actually defend me, stood up to cross-examine, it was a joke. His questions were soft, his challenges weak. The real show began when my mother was called to the stand. She walked to the witness box, her steps slow and heavy. She swore her oath, her voice trembling. The prosecutor began gently. "Mrs. Peterson, this must be incredibly difficult for you." "It's every mother's worst nightmare," Mom whispered, clutching a tissue. "Can you tell the court about your daughter, Lena?" My mother looked at me, her eyes swimming with perfectly produced tears. "Lena ... is a good girl. She's always been intense, so passionate, but lately ... she's been withdrawn. Angry, she told a story of a daughter spiraling out of control. She twisted my desire for privacy into secretiveness. My quiet introversion became alienation. My B+ in algebra was mentioned as a sign of my growing apathy. She was building the character of the troubled teen, brick by painful brick. "And can you tell us how you found the USB drive?" the prosecutor asked. I was looking in her backpack for a school form," she said, her voice cracking, "and it fell out. I had a terrible feeling. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to know if she was okay." She paused, taking a shaky breath. When I saw what was on it, my world just fell apart. She broke down into quiet, dignified sobs. It was breathtaking. Meryl Streep couldn't have done it better. The judge looked at her with sympathy. Everyone looked at me with condemnation. When it was Mr. Davies' turn to cross-examine his own client's mother, I held my breath. This was his chance to ask the hard questions. To bring up her feud with Henderson ... he stood up. "Mrs. Peterson, you love your daughter, don't you?" "More than life itself," she sobbed. "And you just want her to get the help she needs?" "Yes," she choked out. "That's all I want." "No further questions, Your Honor," and he sat down. That was it. He didn't just throw the fight. He helped the other side land the knockout punch. When I took the stand, I knew it was hopeless. I told the truth. I tried to explain my mother's obsession with her reputation, her feud with Henderson ... It all came out sounding like the desperate, spiteful lies of a guilty teenager trying to blame her loving mother. My voice shook with anger, not the gentle sadness that everyone found so convincing. The judge delivered his verdict without a jury. He spoke of my privileged background and my inexcusable actions. He said he saw a deep-seated cry for help, and that he was taking my mother's heartfelt testimony into account. I wasn't sentenced to detention. That would have been too messy. I was found delinquent and sentenced to 2 years of strict juvenile probation, mandatory weekly counseling, a permanent mark on my record that wouldn't be sealed until I was 21. I was guilty. In the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the town, in the eyes of everyone except Clara, I was the girl who set the fire. As they led me out of the courtroom, I looked back at my mother. She was being comforted by my father. She looked up and our eyes met one. Last time, there were no tears now. No sorrow, just the cold, hard glint of victory. She had won. She had protected her perfect life, and the price had been mine. It's been 9 months since the verdict. 9 months since my life was officially rewritten by my mother's hand. Probation is a unique kind of prison. There are no bars, but there are invisible walls everywhere. I have a curfew. I have to pee in a cup once a month to prove I'm not on drugs. I have to sit in a stuffy office every Wednesday afternoon and talk to a court-appointed therapist named Brenda who is Believe. In yourself posters on our wall. Brenda is trying her best. She keeps prodding me to take accountability and explore the root causes of my anger. She wants me to talk about my feelings toward my mother. Oh, I could talk about my feelings toward my mother. I could write a multi-volume encyclopedia on the subject, but I don't. To Brenda, I am just another case file. A privileged girl who acted out. The truth is too monstrous, too unbelievable. I don't live at home anymore. That was the one concession my father managed to broker. The day after the trial, Clara drove her beat-up Honda to my house and packed my bags while I waited in the car, unable to step inside. My mother didn't. Come out. Now I live with Clara in her tiny, off-campus apartment an hour away from Maple Creek. It's cluttered. The plumbing is noisy and the guy downstairs plays terrible techno music at 2 a.m., but it's the safest place I've ever known. It's a home built on truth, not appearances. Sometimes I get updates about my old life. Clara's mom, my aunt, still talks to my mother. Mom's new business, Maple Creek Curated Living, is thriving. With Henderson effectively neutralized and silenced by the scandal involving his attacker, her permits sailed through. She even gave an interview to the local paper for a feature on resilient women in business. She talked about the importance of community and how life's greatest challenges can become our greatest strengths. The irony is so thick it could. Choke you. My father sends me money every month. A guilt payment. He calls sometimes, his voice strained and hollow. He never mentions her. He never mentions the fire. We talk about the weather. I'm writing this all down. Not in a diary for healing, but in a journal for justice. Every night, I document every memory, every detail Clara and I have pieced together. The smell of paint thinner in the garage. The look in my mother's eyes in the foyer. It's not a record of my pain. It's a collection of evidence, because I'm not the same naive 17-year-old anymore. The girl who cared about B+s and just wanted her mother's approval is gone. She burned to ashes in that courtroom. The person who is left is different, colder, sharper. Patient. My mother thinks she won. She thinks she buried the truth and me along with it. She thinks that with time it will all fade away. She's wrong. Time doesn't heal this kind of wound. It hones it. And probation doesn't last forever. In a little over a year, I'll be free from the court's supervision. I'll be an adult. And I'll have options that one day I'll go back. Not as a troubled daughter, but as a prosecutor. I will find the cracks in her perfect story. I will talk to people. Maybe Henderson will be willing to talk then. Maybe someone else saw something. Maybe my mother in her arrogance got sloppy. People like her always do. She destroyed my childhood and my name to protect her life. It's only fair that I use my future to dismantle hers, piece by piece. Lie by lie. The truth doesn't stay buried forever. Not even when it's your own mother who shoves you into the dirt and pats it down with a smile. She told the world I ruined her life. But she's the one who destroyed mine just to protect her reputation. This is my story. For now, there are so many stories like this one, stories of lies and the search for truth. If you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, subscribe. You never know whose voice you'll hear next.